Have you ever noticed how silence can change everything? Not because it's empty, but because it's powerful. It unsettles, it disarms, it reveals. Some people walk into a room and shift its energy, not with noise, but with presence. They don't demand, they don't chase, they simply retreat. And suddenly, everything around them begins to move. Now imagine if you did the same. If you chose stillness over reaction, silence over explanation, distance over overexposure. What would happen then? When you stop being available, the dynamic around you starts to collapse. People get anxious, they get confused. They're not used to the silence. They're used to your yes. Your presence has become a habit. Your emotional responses, a tool. And when that tool disappears, people begin to panic. They say you've changed, but you haven't. You're just no longer playing the role. We live in a world that rewards availability. Quick replies, smiles, even when you're tired. Help, even when you're empty. And the moment you pause, you disrupt the system. You stop being predictable. You stop being usable. And that's when people start to show you who they really are. Not the version they present when you're giving, but the version that emerges when you're not. Since childhood, many of us were taught that being available is love, that being present is virtue, that being helpful is our worth. But that's not love. That's programming. Availability becomes a prison when it's no longer a choice, but a condition. You say yes out of fear. You respond out of guilt. You explain yourself as if your peace needs permission. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, to be seen, to be safe. But that mask is heavy. And one day, your soul begins to crack beneath it. Every time you reply to a message that drains you, every time you show up for someone who never shows up for you, every time you smile when you're breaking, you chip away at your own center. And one day, you're exhausted, but not from doing too much, from doing too much for those who don't even notice. Jung didn't see the mind as a machine. He saw it as an energy system. Every thought, every emotion, every interaction costs you something. The question is, are you investing or bleeding? Every argument you didn't need to have, every reaction you gave too quickly, every time you tried to prove your worth, you spent your psychic energy. And the more you give without awareness, the more invisible you become. This is why manipulative people don't need to scream. They just need to push your buttons, the ones you leave exposed. Because when you're predictable, you're programmable. And when you're programmable, you're controllable. But when you start to observe before reacting, everything changes. You stop being a mirror for their dysfunction and start becoming a container for your own peace. This is the beginning of individuation, not becoming someone new, but finally becoming yourself. At first, silence feels like loss. You wonder if you've become too cold. You question whether you're isolating yourself. But then, the noise settles, and in that space, you begin to feel yourself again. Not the self others expect, but the one you've hidden beneath the noise. Carl Jung said, "Individuation requires separation from the collective. You walk alone, not as punishment, but as purification. The solitude of the strong that is not loneliness, it's presence. Presence with yourself, presence with your truth. And yes, you will lose people. You will become misunderstood. You will be called names. But none of that compares to the peace you find when you're no longer performing. Because when you stop being emotionally available to everyone, you stop being emotionally used by anyone. And what replaces that emptiness? Clarity, focus, power. You don't owe your energy to anyone who treats it like it's unlimited. You don't need to justify your silence. Your absence is not a punishment. It's a message. And those who feel shaken by it were never looking at the real you. They were looking at the version that served them. So now ask yourself, are you ready to disappoint the world, to protect your peace, to be misunderstood, in order to finally feel whole? If you are, write it in the comments. I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are ready for this transition. Because once you stop being available, you don't just protect your energy. Can you reclaim your soul?